Order Council's regular business meeting of January 28th, 2019. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Councilman Kirk.
Please bow your heads. Father in heaven, we thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon our humble town. And we pray for your guidance in our thoughts and our words tonight and always, so that our town's destiny will be one of prosperity, peace, and harmony for all. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First announcement that I'd like to make is that council was in executive session discussing personnel matters. Number 4, is there a motion to approve the minutes for council's regular business meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Or any changes or adjustments that need to be made to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes for council's regular business meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Business meeting carries. The announcements, a couple of announcements I wanted to bring up is Community Cleanup Day is April 6th. Please mark your calendars for that. I'd also remind any small locally owned businesses in McCandless that we now have a business bulletin board where you can post your business there. Also, I wanted to announce that the speed study that was done on McKnight Road, we have been denied the reduction in the speed limit, so we'll be keeping the speed limit at 50 on McKnight. We were trying to get it to go to 40 because tickets aren't issued till 10 above, but that did fail. I also would like to encourage people to look on the social media for a couple of new columns, and one of those is coming from our fire services on the fire side, and the other one will be coming from our junior council member, which hasn't been named yet. Also, we are going to have our very first Services Appreciation Dinner that's February the 19th, and that is for all of our committees, boards, and authorities to show our appreciation for them. Any other announcements? Okay, I'd like to call to order a public hearing on the ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance number 1484, an ordinance which would allow the zoning district of certain vacant properties located on Ingomar Road, identified as lot and block 945J52 in the town of McCandless, from the C7 Office Building District to the R3 Townhouse and Garden Apartment District, and would amend the zoning map of the town of McCandless accordingly. This public hearing will be reviewed at Town Council's Zoning Committee meeting of February the 11th, 2019, and a vote will be scheduled for Council's regular business meeting of February 25th, 2019. Bruce?
Just to cover a couple administrative items. First off, this property was rezoned to C7 from R2 back in the 1990s, and now we have the proposal to zone it back to residential. It's R3 Townhouse and Garden Development. And for the record, I wanted to indicate that the letter notifying the county of the ordinance proposal was sent 45 days in advance. The county had reviewed the proposal. The property was posted as is required by the municipality's planning code, and letters were sent to all, certified letters were sent to all the adjoining property owners in accordance with our town code. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Wetzel from Victor Wetzel Associates, who has been working on this plan. Mike.
Thank you, Bruce. Good evening. Once again, my name is Mike Wetzel. I'm with the firm of Victor Wetzel Associates. I'm here representing Pole Construction, and we're here tonight for the rezoning request of the Dixon property, which is a 6.4 acre parcel located in the C7 zoning district, and we'd like to have it rezoned to R3. Also with me tonight is Don Pohl from Pohl Construction. Before we talk about the rezoning plan, just wanted to introduce you in regard to the site. The existing site, as I mentioned, is 6.4 acres in size and is a undeveloped vacant property. 100% wooded, but there is an existing driveway that leads to the Martin residence through here. And if I go to the drawings that are off to my side here. Once again, under this exhibit, the site is located here and outlined in orange. As I mentioned, it's in the C7 zoning district, which is the office building district. And it really is initially thought to be a transitional district between the D district located along and through here to the C7, then the R2 zoning district. The site has frontage located along East Ingomar Terrace Road along and through this section, Dell Lane located along and through here, and then as another reference point, this is located at the interchange of Ingomar Road and Midnight Road. Site topography wise, well actually with you have the R2 and the single family located here, there is a right-of-way access located off of Northern View Drive. Because of the existing grade, that existing road right-of-way is not feasible to have an access to the site through its grade. And then in regard to site topography, the low point is really located near the intersection of Dell Lane and East Ingomar Terrace. Once again, following low side of the property then gains an elevation to the northwest as well as to the south section of the overall property. So topography-wise, everything drops in elevation down towards the interchange of Midnight Road through here. And once again, as I mentioned, there is an existing driveway access and easement all the way to the Martin residence, which is located right along through this portion of the site. So when we look at the plan for rezoning, as I mentioned, we're looking to do rezone the property to R3 to allow a townhome development. Overall, within the requirements of the rezoning through McCandless, you needed to show a site plan associated with the development. And what we'd like to do is a 26-unit townhome development located with its access off of Dell Lane right along through this section. This road would be a private road with a cul-de-sac terminated here at the end of the property. And as I said, 26 townhomes. The low side townhome units located along and through here, they'll be 28 feet wide by 42 feet deep, and there'll be 17 of those units. The high side units located along through this section, once again, will be also 28 feet wide by 36 feet deep, and there'll be nine of those total units. Now, a normal townhome plan usually anywhere between 22 to 24 feet wide. So these units that will be built here are going to be a much larger, more upscale type of townhome, and these will be a for sale type product within the community. So we are bringing more of a higher end townhome at this location. And this becomes a better use for the site for a transitional standpoint between the more dense D development located through here and the residential development through this section. As well as the access into the site, it really proceeds not to have more of an office building located here because it has an existing non-conforming access located for the site at this section of Dell Lane overall. So what we're looking to do in regard to the townhome plan is to develop this road system as a private road. The roads will be owned and maintained by the homeowners association, but doing this as a private, we'll be able to do less grading associated with the site, less cut slopes along and through here, less fill slopes along through this section within the plan. Trying to really leave existing buffer and trees located within the plan in itself through this area. As part of the plan, as I mentioned, the existing driveway access that comes to the Martin, at the end of the cul-de-sac located through here, we will provide a full driveway access to the Martin residence, which is located at this portion of the site. So now what they have is a gravel driveway that leads through the property. They'll be able to use the paved road system and a paved driveway access to their house under the proposed rezoning and townhome plan. Just to give a little bit of a character sketch, once again, within the plan. Thank you. This is really looking down at McKnight Road and the interchange through this section, East Ingomar Terrace. These are the low side units. These low side units will have walkout basements associated with it, so we'll end up having decks off the side. All units will have a two-car garage and be a front garage exit or entrance within the plan for both low side and high side. Each garage will have a two-car garage as well as 2 parking spaces associated within the plan. And we will also have visitor parking located within the private road in itself. So these units will have a walkout basements. These will be a more traditional townhome where you come in garage level for their front entry garage, the living level on the first floor, and then the living space or the bedroom space on the 3rd floor. Here you'll be walking out the back of the units on the 1st floor level. So this kind of gives the character space associated with the overall townhome plan. So as I said, we're looking to have the property rezoned from C7 to R3 in regard to do a 26-unit townhome development for the Dixon property. Glad to answer any questions that the board might have at this time.
Any questions? Take questions.
Yeah. Madam President, before we open it up for the public, could I just make a quick comment on what's in front of council now? Just to be clear, I mean, what you're looking at is potentially rezoning this property from C7 to R3. You're not approving the development. You're not getting into the details. I mean, if you change it to R3, it could be this developer, another developer. Any use that's permitted in the R3 district would now be permitted if you change the map. So again, you're not reviewing this to say, well, you like these particular townhomes or this particular development. You're just trying to determine whether or not it makes sense to rezone this particular parcel.
And C7 is commercial office buildings, is that correct?
Right. Any other questions from council? Are there any other comments or questions for the developer from the audience? You got an easy night.
I provided copies of of our presentation to the township secretary, so as part of the public record, we gave these exhibits to the township. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll close that public hearing. Bruce, do you have something? Is this on the next one you're getting together? Okay, all right. So I'm going to start reading it. It's long. Okay. Number 7, public hearing on ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance 1485, an ordinance of the town of McCandless, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, rezoning certain properties abutting Corporate Drive in the town of McCandless, identified as lot and block numbers 715L234, 715L207, 715L150, 715L37, 715L110, 715R225, and 715L248 from C5 Commercial Residential District to C6. That should say Light Industrial District. And amending the zoning map of the town of McCandless accordingly. Amending the planning and zoning code to provide zoning regulations for medical marijuana facilities, including medical marijuana academic research, clinical research centers to be permitted as a conditional use in the I institutional district. Dispensaries to be permitted as a conditional use in the RC residential commercial district and C3 highway commercial district and the C4 regional shopping district, and grower processors to be permitted as a conditional use in the C6 industrial district. Amending the planning and zoning code to provide amended zoning regulations for personal storage, establishment facilities, and to relocate regulations concerning undefined or other land uses, and repealing and replacing Article 1337 of Part 13 of the Codified Ordinances of the Town of McCandless in its entirety. This public hearing will be reviewed by Town Council Zoning Committee of February the 11th, 2019, and a vote will be scheduled for Town Council's regular business meeting on February 25th, 2019. Bruce, thank you.
Back in 2018, Pennsylvania passed a medical marijuana, some provisions of medical marijuana law and they kept part of it. Well, I'm sorry, I better start with the administrative part of this first, just as we did. This is a rezoning as well. It deals with more than just the medical marijuana. Is also a rezoning. So we had to put in 2 legal ads in accordance with the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. The property was posted on January 9th, 2019. Letters were sent to all, certified letters were sent to all adjoining neighbors. In addition to that, council requested that since we are making changes to the RC zoning district, council had requested that we send letters to all people adjoining the residential commercial RC district. And we did that. Not only did we do that, but we sent letters to all the people within the RC zoning district. So also, we had sent more than 45 days in advance of the hearing. We sent a letter, notified the county, and received a response from the county. The Medical Marijuana Act of 2016 is generally regulated by the Pennsylvania Department of Public Health. And generally when those kind of things happen, the municipality doesn't have a whole lot to say about it. The state says, here's what we're going to do. In this case, however, they did preserve municipal zoning. And that was nice of them to do that. We can't tell them how to handle the medical marijuana, but we can say where it can go. And that's what we did. However, they also said at the same time that we can't treat the medical marijuana uses any differently than we would treat any other use, similar use within that same zoning district. And I'll get into each one of the parts of that as we go through this. Key part to this is if we don't have any zoning for it whatsoever, there's a good chance that someone could come in and put a distribution center any place, or a dispensary any place that they wanted to put it. So council was proactive and did pass a pending ordinance. We do have regulations in effect at this very moment, but those regulations are only temporary. This proposal will carry it forward if they vote in favor of this. So again, we can't regulate how it's done, but we can regulate where it's done. There are 3 different zoning uses involving medical marijuana. One is an academic clinical research center, dispensaries, and grower processors, all having to do with medical marijuana. The Academic Clinical Research Center we are proposing it to be a conditional use. However, it must be in an accredited medical school. We don't have an accredited medical school, but in an effort, if we did have one, it would be in an I-zone district. Our I-zone district is for institutional uses only, and we do have colleges in the town of McCandless, and that would be the most likely place that it would take place. Or if it would take place within a hospital, suppose that a hospital had an academic arm within it, and they wanted to do clinical research on medical marijuana, they would be able to do it. And our hospitals are zoned for the most part I. This is a zoning map, and so when we're looking at the I-zone districts, they're all the colors didn't come through, but these the I-zone districts are generally this color. They would generally be green. It just in the copying process they didn't come out that way. So, but the most likely places that they would be down in this area, which is the hospital and LaRoche College. The express criteria, so conditional use, I know a lot of you have been here before and are pretty familiar with our zoning and what a conditional use is. So a conditional use, for those of you who don't know, a conditional use is a use which is a permitted use within the town. However, it gives the town council some flexibility. And in this case, the town council rules on whether the use is meeting the criteria which is established. And again, we can't establish a lot of criteria, and we do have to treat it as if, in this case, as if it was a college or some other clinical research area. So basically, all the items that we have in here are items which are already controlled by the Pennsylvania Department of Health, and these are mostly copied from that law, from the state law. We do have a requirement for parking, and pretty much what we say is that this is an unlisted use, so if someone was going to establish this, and you'll see this throughout all three sections, if someone's going to use one of these, or a clinical research center, they would have to do a parking study. And that was one thing that we thought that we could add, and that is not any different than anything else that we would do in any other zone district. Another aspect of this is a medical marijuana dispensary, and we are proposing this again as a conditional use. And the conditional use in this case it is being permitted in the RC zone district, the C3 zone district, and the C4 zone district. And the reason for those districts is those are typical areas where we would permit drugstores and other commercial uses. And again, we're not trying to treat it any differently than we would any other use. So in this case, the C3 zone districts are the beige areas, and we have a lot of them throughout the town. The RC zone district is the red area, and the C4 zone district is McIntyre Square. So those are the areas where we're proposing it. Again, as a conditional use, this would require a public hearing, and they would have to meet express criteria. And the key part to this, again, is these are things that are already within, they have to meet state criteria. Before, if someone was going to apply, they would have to come before us and prove that they are meeting all of these conditions. A key part to this is the distance requirement. It is a medical marijuana dispensary may not be located within 1,000 feet of the property line of a public, private, or parochial school or daycare center unless this requirement is waived by the Department of Health. So that is a key issue, and we did a study of all the areas that are within 1,000 feet of one of those types of schools. So the areas The areas that are highlighted are areas within 1,000 feet of one of those types of schools or daycare centers. So these are areas where you would not be able to place it. So we have a small area up here where you could place a dispensary. There's a small piece down here in the C4 where you could place it. Now, although we're permitting it as a conditional use in the RC zone district, because of the schools and daycare centers, there's actually, at this time, there is no place where it would be permitted unless that requirement for the 1,000-foot setback was waived by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So there aren't a whole lot of places that it could go in, but we have to permit it, so we do have some spaces that it could go in. The third part to the medical marijuana law is a grower processor. During the research we did early on when we received notice that this was going to take place, generally these are, I initially thought this would be a farm operation. Well, it's not a farm operation. Generally it's an industrial use, and there are a lot of requirements the state has for it. The grower has to be, the grower processor has to be indoors, it has to be fenced in. And generally, the building sizes, what we found, were between 10,000 and 80,000 square feet. So what we're doing is proposing this again as a conditional use in the C6 zone district, which is our light industrial zone district. So if you look at this map right now, there is not a light industrial zone district in the town of McCandless. So that created a bit of a problem for us. That's a bit of a problem for us in any case. If someone wanted to come in and put a light industrial use in, we don't have any place that it would fit. So what we proposed was, let's look at some areas where a light industrial use may be a possibility, and that is our C5 zone district, which is now McCandless Corporate Center. And we do have some things that fall into that category now at McCandless Corporate Center. For example, laboratories are one of them in our light industrial district. So these are the, in order to make sure that this complies and we're not treating it any differently than we are any other use, similar use, again, it's a conditional use. The criteria that are trying, these are criteria 1341.21 are criteria which are taken from our existing C6 ordinance. Even though we don't have a C6 zone district, we do have some regulations. So we're not treating this any differently than any other use within that C6 district. So as you can see, again, we go back to this talks about having it to be inside, how it has to be fenced in, security and things like that. We are concerned about the lighting in this area, so we do have an additional lighting requirement in here. Again, it's a lighting requirement that we have in our other ordinances. It's not something special that we're doing for this. So the C6 rezoning, as we said, is the McCandless Corporate Center. And what we did was we just took the C6 uses and the C5 uses and we put them all together so that McCandless Corporate Center, who is in agreement with this and they accepted this as a use. They don't have to do it, by the way. They don't have to allow any of this. And I don't know if they would or wouldn't, and they do have one large parcel which is still developable. So we put them, the only thing we took out was single-family dwellings. It made absolutely no sense to have single-family dwellings in this zone district, and the owner of the property was perfectly okay with that. Some examples of additional C6 uses are the wholesale establishments, laboratories, light industrial. And the light industrial, the key part to that is a light industrial is something that's not going to generate a lot of smoke, fumes, odors, vibrations. So we are very restrictive on our light industrial uses anyways. So this I got, to make it to fit on the page, we put it I turned it, so this is actually going south to north. This is McKnight Road. So this is the area that we're talking about. And we're excluding this piece. And the reason we're excluding this piece is because it abuts residential property. So we do have Vincentian across the street from it, but it doesn't touch, but it is across the street from the C5, proposed C5. But this is the area of proposed C6. So the parcel that I said was vacant is this parcel. We've had a number of, we've had a hotel that we approved here. We had at one point a 100-foot tall office building that we approved, but none of those things ever got built. So a little bit of history about this. There was to be, back in the 1970s, there was to be a large energy-producing plant that was going to support this, and this was going to be the tallest structure on the tallest part, was going to be the tallest structure in Allegheny County, and it was going to have a rotating, it was proposed to have a rotating restaurant. Obviously, that never got built. And the thing that I found curious about it was they said you'll be able to see the Laurel Mountains from here, but if you think back to the 1970s, seeing a whole lot through the smog in the area probably wasn't very likely. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions or comments for council? Any questions or comments from the audience, from our citizens? Okay, here. Oh, please come up front to the microphone and say your name and your address. Right up here, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Maria Carnasella, and sorry if I missed this when you were introducing the topic, but it wasn't clear to me whether the municipality was proposing these changes or whether it was a private enterprise.
The municipality is proposing these, and the reason is if we do not have zoning in place to regulate these, possibly that anybody who wanted to have any one of these types of enterprises would be able to do it anywhere that they wanted to. Therefore, town council took the action to initiate this so that we could regulate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? All right, hearing none, then we will close the public hearing, and we'll move on to reports of the committees. Finance and Personnel.
Number one, I move to approve checklisting number one dated December 6th, 2018 through January 9th, 2019, totaling $1,040,510.96 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Council has had these bills in time for questions, but there are any other additional questions? I think there was a misentry on a $90,000 parts.
Yes, a plow and a dump body are definitely parts, but in a different category,
Yeah,
bigger part.
a hole, a couple holes.
Big, yeah.
Anything else from council? Any comments about the budget from any citizens? Okay, there's been a motion to approve checklist number one dated December 6, 2018 through January 9th, 2019, totaling $1,040,510.96 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and the town website. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number two, I move to approve resolution number one of the 2019 series, a resolution establishing a policy for the operation of a community calendar on the town's website, which will provide an opportunity for residents, nonprofit organizations, and governmental entities to post notification of upcoming events.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. I'm very pleased to have this. We're looking at a one-stop shop that citizens can access all the goings-on in the town, and it'll be on our website. So, you can look on there and then reference that to whether it's a hike in North Park or a nonprofit or a coat drive or anything. So it'll be nice. You don't have to look in a lot of places. You can kind of find out what's going on the town. And these will be submitted by email, electronically to John Bojarski, and then he'll post these. Any other comments?
That concludes the Finance and Personnel.
Oh, we have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Excuse
okay.
me.
Did anyone have any other comments on this or questions about this? Okay. Any comments or questions from the citizens on this new calendar? Okay. Move to approve resolution number 1 of the 2019 series, a resolution establishing a policy for the operation of the community calendar on the town's website, which will provide an opportunity for residents, nonprofit organizations, and governmental entities to post notifications of upcoming events. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any unfinished business from council members? All right, to new business.
Move to approve Lieutenant Ryan Hawk as acting chief of police for the town of McCandless commencing February 1st, 2019.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any comment from council? All right, hearing none. Is there comment from citizens?
Is this general now, comment?
Not yet. If you would like to speak on this appointment, it's now. Okay. All right. Move to appoint Lieutenant Ryan Hawk in the position of acting chief of police for the town of McCandless, commencing February 1st, 2019. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Acting Chief of Police Hawk for Hawk for stepping up and in our time, because our previously acting chief O'Connor, who's done an outstanding job, will be retiring at the end of the month. So much thanks to both of them for stepping up. I don't think it's too much of a breach of executive session to say that the first comment out of Acting Chief Hawk's mouth when we asked him was, will it help the town? This is the kind of officers we like in the canvas. All right, now it is time for public comment. Please step up and say your name and say your name.
Just 1 second.
Oh.
Wait a second.
I'm Larry Schweiger, and I live on 9922 LeGrand Drive. I have a phone call that I wanted to share with you all. On December 5th, 2018, John Desmond called me from his Smithport home, which is near Kane, Pennsylvania. John is a hunting buddy of Chief DeSantis and someone I knew many, many years ago during my time with the General Assembly. John called in an attempt to get me to influence my daughter Carolyn as a member of the council. John followed up his call with an email on December 6th with a collection of articles aimed at attacking the credibility of certain members of the police department. Regardless of the matters under investigation, John conveyed to me that the chief rejected the charges and felt his officers were instrumental in his suspension. According to John, DeSantis was also critical of his officers for their no confidence vote that was taken the night before John called me. He was blaming his suspension on apparent union requests for a work hour change, which I understood to be a decision made by this council, not by the chief. John was unabashedly lobbying me to influence the council member. I told John that Carolyn has not shared any of the details of the matter with me, but I trust her judgment. I also respect the boundaries of the council's investigation, and I'm concerned with any attempt to interfere with an ongoing investigation. I was clear that I would not intervene on behalf of the chief. A no confidence from the vote of a near majority of the officers, coupled with DeSantis' distrust for his officers, makes it clear to me that mutual trust is gone from the McCandless Police Department. A dysfunctional and hostile work environment left unaddressed may lead to retributions and will destroy the collegiality among our professional police department, and that will eventually jeopardize public safety. I have been a CEO for 22 years, overseeing many times hundreds of employees, and I can say for certain that a leader must maintain the trust, support, and confidence of their team in order to be successful. Thank you.
Heather Hughes, Edward Road. I didn't think I would be standing here again talking about our fine police department. I'm going to talk about the agenda because I do try and get to the meetings, as you know, and I looked at the agenda for last Monday and it did not mention anything that there was going to be a proposal about the chief. So as soon as you opened it, Mr. Walkarkas brought up very quickly that he wanted a pass, that he wanted the chief to go off on unpaid leave. And a vote was taken extremely quickly. Mr. Kirk, I believe, but the audio was very difficult listening in on the Tuesday morning on the video. I think he raised an objection because there was only 3 people in attendance, and I think 1 reporter. Mr. Mertz, I heard him say, I think this should be tabled. I wasn't sure if I heard Ms. Schweiger, I'm sorry, but it was a horrible audio. It just went through extremely quickly. So on one side, I'm commending Mr. Kirk for saying maybe we should wait till today to do this. But then I was very upset when I read that you had gone into a newspaper article and said that the vote of no confidence meant nothing to you. You have 24 of your 26 police department that had no vote of confidence, and yet you said that was nothing to do with your decision. I'm appalled at that. Concessions are being made for the 2 officers. I want to know what concessions have been made for our female officer. I have heard, and I once again don't know because we don't get it from you, council, that once the lieutenant came back, she's now under his watch. I hope that's not true. There's 3 shifts in 24 hours. Surely to goodness this young lady can be put into another 8-hour shift. I absolutely want a female officer to stay in McCandless, because I sadly had to go in with a colleague of mine about 8-10 years ago. She didn't have a female officer on duty in her township, but we did, and it was Officer Sabrina Devereaux, who we absolutely loved. And I would hope that this has not sort of taken away any future people would like to join if you're a female officer. So I really want that to be mentioned. We've had something in the paper about the chief. I believe it was his attorney. And he said, you're all going to be rewriting something so that he's going to be comfortable and he can walk back in. You do know that there was a law passed through the township on 11/23/98. I think you're all aware of this. It talks about the town maintains a working environment free from all sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is any unwelcome sexual advance, request for sexual favors, and other verbal, visual, or physical conduct of sexual nature. Any such harassment is prohibited and shall be the subject of disciplinary action by the town. I just don't know what you council can write any more clearer one that this states, which is in the policy of your book. So I would like that to be addressed. Thank you.
I would like to clear your misunderstanding of the audio. That was myself who objected to voting that. It was not Councilmember Kirk. It was myself that objected to voting that evening. It was so late at night that we felt like I felt like that it being such an important decision that it should have waited till we had time to bring it up at a meeting where people could have some opinions on that. Are there any other citizens that'd like to speak?
I'm Diane Cebulski. I live on Balmoral Drive. I had read about what happened in the paper and saw it online on a few of the news stations, and I'm so angry about this. According to a few of the articles, Chief DeSanti's lawyer issued a statement that says, in part, to be clear, Chief DeSanti's sole objective is to ensure that the McCandless Town Police Department is operated in accordance with the highest ethical and professional standards. The citizens of McCandless are entitled to no less, should accept no less. Well, it certainly seems that under Chief DeSanti, the department is not being operated with the highest ethical standards. I'm not sure what the town council are hoping to be gained by giving a man with 40 years' experience in law enforcement parameters to abide by. If he does not know how to act with integrity at this stage of his career, I do not think it is our job to show him. Also, given how Chief DeSanti has already treated our police force, how can members of council expect that the chief will act fairly with the force under him who voted they have no confidence in him? According to a Post-Gazette article, Mr. Kirk states that the no confidence vote was not considered while deciding the situation. He blames that on the union and says it is outside of the investigation. I do not agree with that. What the vote tells me is the police force does not trust the head of our department to follow the law and face up to the consequences of his behavior. I'm very concerned that we will begin to lose the good, honest people we have back here on our force. And how will we continue to recruit the best officers if they know they are working under a man who does not follow the law? Our township's homepage states the town of McCandless is a place of welcome and hospitality for all who seek lawful residence in or visit our community, regardless of their country of origin, race, native language, religion, sexual orientation, and embraces empathy for all, promoting equality, diversity, and inclusivity. That's not exactly what's happening here. For the safety and the reputation of our township, it's time to start a new search for a new chief and move on.
Thank you.
Hi, it's a long wait tonight to see you.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, my name's Joyce Erdner. I'm the executive director of the Doorway in Avalon, a crisis ministry. And I know nothing about most of these officers. I've known some of them because I had an office in Judge Ralph Friedman's office for like 10 years. So the older officers I know, and I work with the officers in Avalon and Bellevue, and so I have no problem with officers. I respect them, and I'm certainly happy that they're doing their job. But I will not allow Chief DeSanti's reputation to be destroyed. I don't know what happened. Obviously, we're not going to know what happened because no one's telling us. But I have worked with him for over 30 years. I have never, ever heard him say anything that was inappropriate. There was a mention in one of the articles about somebody perhaps being kissed on the cheek, an officer. I don't know if that's true, but I know I've been kissed by Chief DeSanti and numbers of other chiefs on my cheek, and it was not a sexual harassment event. I have never heard a swear word. I have never heard any kind of disrespect in over 30 years from Dave DeSanti. Now, can he work with these men? I don't know about that. But I know he is a man of character. He is honorable. And I believe that his reputation should not be destroyed. If he can't work with them or they with him, that's a different issue. But he is an honorable man, and I don't believe that his name should be dragged through the mud. He is not a sexual predator. He is nowhere close to being that. And I think it needs to be clear. figure out what's happening with the men. And I live in McCandless, and I didn't want to do this because when I have to make a phone call, I want you guys to come and help me like you always have. But I just can't see his reputation being destroyed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Welchman, Wagon Wheel Trail. I feel that this council, some of the members of this council, have completely disregarded the oath that they have taken to serve this town. All I see here is partisanship and people protecting their friends. You have not, some of you have not acted in the best interest of this community, and everyone sees it. I'm sure this will reflect when each of you are up for re-election, because I'm going to remember it. We will not forget the embarrassment that has been brought to this wonderful community. Lieutenant Basil should have had harsher consequences, but he was protected. You put this female officer on the same shift as the person who she accused of sexual harassment. This is unconscionable to me. Imagine if this was your daughter or your child. How would you feel? Regardless of the sexual harassment claims, even if you don't take that into consideration, his behavior is the responsibility of the chief of police. It is on him. It was on his watch. He is ultimately responsible. Anyone who knows me knows that I speak my mind, and I'm very conservative. And that said, this is not a partisan issue, but this council is making it a partisan issue. This is an issue between right and wrong. And I'm not sure what's wrong with this council, but the message that you have sent is that any complaint will be handled as a partisan issue. And, you know, one of the things that I have heard is nobody filed a complaint against Chief DeSanti or Lieutenant Basil prior to this. Why would they when this is what happens? And you have just sent a huge message to anyone in the future who wants to file a complaint that nothing will be done. This is wrong, and those of you who vote to allow this should examine your conscience. Really, you should take a look in the mirror, because your priorities are pretty messed up. Our police force and this town, where I have lived for 53 years, deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Please come up.
My name is Ron Eichner of Eichner's Farm, 285 Richard Road. I'm here on behalf of, I'm a fourth-generation farmer, and I'm speaking for 4 generations of my family members. Our farm market and greenhouse are a year-round destination for area residents. Farms are like hardware stores. They come with questions, they get answers, chat about events of the day, weeks or months. Needless to say, due to the inside leaks, which led to press releases or comments aired in the media, TV, radio, and newspapers, have really stirred the pot, truly in a negative way. I feel there's been malice and criminal intent with these actions. Pennsylvania is one of a handful of states that you have inherent right to your reputation. How Chief DeSanti's profile and the false allegations is an example of attacking his reputation. The word victim has been whispered in the community, and truly, the definition of victim really relates to Chief DeSanti, Gina, his wife, and the extended family have been victims. Also, the town of McCandless residents are victims in more ways than one. One, people have been saying there's been a lot less police activity in the town since the chief was suspended late October. Schools are not being checked with walk-around door checks. Seeing less police presence in the neighborhoods have been mentioned. 2, the police chief has stepped up additional training that not only benefits the officers but benefits the town residents and protects the town and the residents. Bottom line, the officers were resisting change at every level and creating an undercurrent and to get the chief fired at any cost. To prove my point at any cost, what was the reason for the union membership vote of no confidence in the chief? The action has nothing to do with the suspension of the chief. The no confidence vote has been used before in other communities. If anyone would have done some research or investigating, an officer has had in an attempt to try the same vote 10 or 12 years ago. Do you see a pattern? The police chief survived, that police chief survived the no confidence vote just as Chief DeSanti has. This all got started with a multi-page narrative to our town manager on what occurred 13 months early, September 4, 2017, Labor Day party at the DeSanti residence. Interestingly, though, through the course of the investigation, no one was interviewed at the DeSanti house, which would have disproved the allegations presented. Now the question should be, who leaked the misinformation and why haven't the leaks been investigated? How would anyone in this room that would be profiled like how Chief DeSanti has been falsely profiled for months on the news, TV, radio, and newspapers? The truth is, 2 allegations don't support a continued suspension and even without pay. Since the October 2018 suspension of Chief DeSanti, the police department has become unbridled and have fallen back into old work habits and comfort zones. I hope the correction action plan will support the police chief in order to bridle the police department back into a respective atmosphere and to get back to protect and serve the town residents who they should serve. Again, how would you like the person to be kept through all this and having to spend tens of thousands of dollars to protect your 40-plus years of spotless reputation, knowing the conspirators just think it's all a game, they can play again and again? Council should investigate the behaviors. A town official stated that town council was told in October that the investigation would be completed in 2 weeks, and now it's almost 3 months. That was a quote. I agree 2 weeks could be a fair timeline to get everyone back to work. This whole dragged out due process comes at a heavy cost. I hope someone leaks how much this has cost to the taxpayers of McCandless, since leaks are the mode of communication. Truly, the taxpayers deserve to know the cost of this all. Please put together, Council, a correction action plan that addresses the issues that are struggled with downstairs. There may need to have a therapist involved to help the department bridle back into shape. If it is needed, maybe the union can pick up the tab. Thanks, and God bless.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening. My name is Brandon Starby. I live over on Sandalwood Lane, Ward 2 with you, Bill. How you doing? I commend you two for coming up here. I really wish I could have the blind faith and loyalty in Chief DeSanti as you both have. You both have mentioned, you've known him for 30 years, and I'm sure he's a great man. I'm sure, you in your interactions with him have been great. These 2 dozen or so officers interact with him on a daily basis for the past 2 years, so they know a little bit more of what's going on. So I'd have to put my faith in them as well. However, Bill, I did also have problems with the article that you had, and speaking with the media, with a variety of the council members. I think we deserve to know. I think the information should come from you all in the council meeting now, and that's how the media should find out. They got more comments on this than we did. As 2 of these lovely ladies mentioned, I did have a problem with not taking the vote of no confidence into consideration. I really thought that was, neglect as a council member. I thought that was a very important piece of evidence regardless. Second, I also didn't like your comment that the allegations against the chief did not rise to the level of criminal. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Crimes Code defines harassment in Section 2079 of Title 18 as a person commits the crime of harassment with the intent to harass, annoy, or alarm the other person, subject the person to physical contact. And I also am aware that there are two people, a potential officer's wife and a current officer, that have both felt this way. And I also feel the action plan is somewhat of a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It's only going to hold for so long, and as the gentleman in the back mentioned, people will fall back into their old ways, and I believe that will happen if you let a person of power back into a position of power after already receiving only a slight slap on the wrist. It's a first offense. That just means that one person was brave enough to come forward, and to this woman here that mentioned the female officer has to go back into or under the watch of Lieutenant Basil and potentially Chief DeSanti. She's strong. She'll be okay. She's tough. She's got a couple dozen officers to help her as well. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.